Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends, these are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Today's episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photography. If you are a creator needing post-production, consultation, or promotion, Walt Mills is your guy. Whether short films, YouTube films, photography work, or a new headshot, he can help you find a solution to match your needs. To learn more about Walt and his work, go to photosbywalt.com. We also want to give a shout out to our friend Chris Clow of Upbeat Media Productions. If you are in need of turnkey special event production, Clow is your go-to. You can learn more about him and his work at upbeatmediapro.com. All right, we're super excited to welcome our guest to the show, Debby Montgomery Johnson. She's the #1 best-selling author, international speaker, entrepreneur, and podcast host. In her book, The Woman Behind the Smile, she shares her personal experience with a love that turned into a betrayal and financial disaster. Debby's background is diverse, from working as a paralegal and senior bank branch manager to being a U.S. Air Force intelligence officer, serving at the Pentagon and with the Defense Intelligence Agency. She's currently the president of BenfoComplete.com, a vitamin supplement company that provides an alternative remedy for the pain of neuropathy. Debby first appeared in the Palm Beach Post and has appeared on various shows, including the Dr. Oz Show, CBS This Morning, the Mel Robbins Show, and the Tamron Hall Show. Additionally, she was featured in National Geographic's Trafficked with Mariana van Zeller and is regularly called upon for expert commentary about relationship fraud. So welcome to the show, Debby. Super excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we are going to jump into this. I'm so thrilled to have you here today. I know this is our second run to get you on here, so excited to have you here. But I want to open this up to talk a little bit. You've got so many things going on here, but just walk us through a little bit where we're at right now and how we got to this place.
Well, I got to where I am not by choice originally. It was 10 years ago. My husband, I got a phone call from my oldest son, and he said, "Mom, Dad just died. I'm coming home to take care of everything." And actually, it was 12 years ago that happened. And when that happened, that really changed my life. My husband was only 56. I was 52, wasn't expecting that at all. And I hadn't planned for it. He hadn't planned for it. He even had a company. And one day, one of his clients called and said, "Lou, if something happens to you, who runs the company?" And I happened to be sitting in his office that day. And he looked at me and says, "Deb's going to do it." And I said, "You had better put something into place because it's not my company. I don't know anything about it." Well, needless to say, he didn't put anything together short of a 4-page continuity plan. And when I got that phone call, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, that his company pays all of our bills. The job I had at the time, I was doing it for benefits. And it was through the school district. And when I realized that he hadn't put anything together and I had to figure it out, it was a real shocker for me. But fortunately, I'd had some really good training. You mentioned that I had been in the Air Force. I had worked for lawyers. I had some really good background and knew people that I could call on. And I really went to his customers and suppliers and said, "This is what's happened. I want to keep this going. Help me." And that was a really humbling experience because I grew up in Vermont being pretty self-sufficient. And when I had to reach out to folks and say, "Help me," and they did, they turned around and did as best they could, which was really wonderful. It kept the company going with a couple of hiccups, but all in all, it was wonderful. And until 6 months into it, when all of my friends were saying to me, "Hey, you got to get a life because all you're doing is working." And literally, I was working the business all day long. I was working my job at the school district in the mornings from 6 until noon. I had no time to really grieve. I had to keep life going. And the only time I would cry was when I was swimming, doing laps in the afternoon, very controlled. I would do 10 laps of one stroke, 10 of another. I'd be looking up at the ceiling at the pool. And that's when I would cry. And I'd be talking to Lou saying, "Hey, you've got to help me here. I don't know what I'm doing." And nobody knew I was crying because I was in the water. Because when anybody asked me how I was doing, I had to keep it together. That's where the woman behind the smile came. I just felt like I had to be the perfect one to keep everything in control. And I really needed to have some time to fall apart, but not let anybody know that I was doing that. So when my friends said, get a life, they really said, you need to start dating again. You need to get out there. You need to do something more than just work. Well, I'd been married for almost 26 years, and the idea of getting out there to date again was very, I want to say overwhelming, because it brought back all those feelings of when I was young, the insecurities of not being smart enough, pretty enough, all these enough things. And I finally had to sit myself down and say, hey, you're 52, you're very accomplished, you don't have to worry about that. But inside, those limiting beliefs were just screaming, like, what are you doing? And so I decided, with my friend's assistance, to go online, because I thought that might be the safest thing to do at the time. I wasn't ready for an in-person relationship, but I did want to talk to somebody. I wanted to talk about what it was like losing a husband. I want to talk to someone about running a business, and I felt that was safe. So that started it all 10 years ago.
Wow.
Safe.
Wow.
Safe.
Yeah. Safe. Wow. Yeah. And you have an incredible story. And for our listeners, I mean, we could be here for a while to talk about this all, but let's talk a little bit about this book that you wrote, because this is a little bit about your journey, what you went through. So tell us a little bit about that.
It did. And actually, the reason I wrote the book was partly to get the story out, because people are going to know that it was a romance relationship fraud story. But when I first started talking about it, and it took quite a while to get over being afraid of talking, because I felt so stupid, so vulnerable, all these words that were so self-deprecating. I was talking to some friends, and they'd mentioned online dating, and I told them the story, and they said, oh, you have to tell. And I'm like, oh, I'm not telling anybody. And one woman looked at me and she said, Deb, you have to tell what happened, because my mother was taken for $80,000 and she'll never tell that story. And over the course of lunch, I had 3 or 4 women come up and say, this happened to me. I was in a Ponzi scheme, not once, but twice. I was in a relationship with a man, and it turned out he had a family somewhere else. And all these women had these incredible stories of their trust being stolen from them, but no one would speak up. And that's when I realized that the story wasn't about me anymore. It was about who I could help to either beware about what was going on or beware of predators out there. And that's when it turned into my mission. And I wrote the book because I had to get the story out of me first. And that really released the emotions of it, because the story is not me. It doesn't define me. It happened to me. And I look back now and I said, it happened for me, because now I can be the voice of who I call the survivors and the thrivers. And I can effectively advocate for them. Because here's a statistic: 3 out of 100 people taken in financial fraud, especially online relationship fraud, will speak up. 97 of those 100 will not. And so because of that, the word's not really getting out there, and the scammers, who are really criminals, are running to the bank with smiles on their faces.
Wow.
So it became my mission at that point.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, I think, when you go through, now, obviously I have not been through something like that, but you're saying there are a lot of people out there that have. And when you go through that, being able to come out on that other side and be able to tell your story, it becomes not so much about you, but how you can use your story to transform the lives of other people. And so I think, wow. And so for somebody maybe, on that other side, because obviously this is kind of it's a very, I feel like, personal subject, right? Like, not everybody wants to come forward and say, hey, this has happened to me, because it is so personal. But what advice can you offer somebody, maybe, and we're going to get on some other things, but I really want to talk about this right here. Like, what advice can you offer for somebody maybe that's feeling like, hey, they're in that situation right now, and they're recognizing, hey, the red flags are there. Is there anything you can point and lead them to notice or to move forward on that?
Well, listen to your gut. Listen to the inspiration, because what happens in the psychology of a scam is that the scammers are very well trained. They are, and I don't want to call them scammers because that really minimizes what they do. They're organized crime. They work in groups. It's not a he, it's always a they. They're trained in universities in Nigeria and Ghana and other places. So they know how to get you into the story. And there are no demographics that aren't caught by fraud. It's men, women, all age groups. In the relationship fraud, it typically is women over 50 who maybe have been divorced or widowed or have had a life-changing experience. But it's well-educated, well-financed people. and all over the world that this is happening to. So if you feel like this is happening, and you'll know, I probably knew, I wanted it to be true. I wanted the relationship. And honestly, a long distance relationship at that point felt safe to me because I wasn't ready for the in-person one yet. But the disappointments and the setups and the stories that are told, and obviously I've learned a lot over 10 years, which I didn't know back then because I hadn't heard of online fraud, at least not relationship fraud back then. Everybody that I knew had a great relationship. They'd met their spouse. Even my mother's best friend found a man and she ended up getting married. So I heard all these positives. It wasn't until this happened to me that I started hearing the negatives and hearing the stories and, the men that it's impersonation where they impersonate military members, or they're on an oil rig, or they're an international contractor. The stories are the same once you start hearing them. They just change the specifics, but they are expert at reeling you in. And before you know it, I mean, if I can't help someone prevent it within the first week or two, then we can't work with them until they're what I call broke and broken, because there's such manipulation going on. And you don't want to see it. You want to see the good. We have big hearts. We want to be helping. And you get sucked into the story of a family member, or for me, it was, I thought, really an incredible story of a man that had lost his wife. And so I realized that I related more to a man who was a widower than someone who'd been divorced. Because in my mind, the divorcees were bringing a lot of baggage with them, where the men that had lost their wives, they had stories like mine. And they're stories of grief and stories of family. And that was another thing. Family is very important to me. And so he had created this family. And I got to know, air quotes on that one, his sister, his son, his attorney, different people in the story. It wasn't just him. And this was over 2 years, too, for me. It was a 2-year. And again, people say, well, didn't you meet him? Well, no, because he was doing work overseas. He was a contractor. He was an independent contractor working over in the Far East. And much of the story was business oriented, where he had a company, he was moving product, he was running into issues with customs and tariffs and those things, some of which I understood, some not, because it was overseas. And the things when I questioned him, because again, I'd had some legal background, I worked for banks. When I questioned why these things were happening, he always had an answer. There was always a plausible answer. And because I didn't have my scam alert up, I wasn't looking for trying to prove he was telling me a lie. I was looking for the truth. And because most of the time I felt like it was the truth, I'm sure there were some pink flags out there. But I wasn't looking for those pink flags. I certainly wasn't looking for red flags. I was looking for the green flag to get this done and get home. But hindsight's 20/20. I can look back and see all the things that happened. And that's why in what I'm doing now, working with men and women today, I know what the flags are. I've seen them. And there are stories that we see over and over and over. And I just want to say, folks, they are true experts at what they do, but here are the stories that they use, A, B, C, and D. Here are the things that you need to be asking, A, B, C, and D. Most people, when they're involved like that, even in a personal relationship, you don't want to start questioning because you like the feelings that you have, the feeling of being loved and appreciated. And if anything good came out of this bad, was that over those 2 years, and a friend of mine was a psychologist, she's passed on now, but she said, Deb, there was a part of you that if you look at yourself as a piece of Swiss cheese, you had a big hole in you that felt throughout your marriage that you hadn't been listened to. And I'm going, oh my gosh, that is so true. And so because I had 2 years of someone listening to me, and I have journaled, I have 4,000 pages of journal, he listened to me, and that filled up that hole. And it made me a better person from the inside out. So even though it turned out to be an awful event, that part of me had healed, and it made me much more willing to speak up when I felt like there was an injustice or something needed to be changed. And that was the good part. So the other good part was in the end that he came on and it was interesting. It was a morning conversation, and he came on and said, how do you feel about forgiveness? And boy, that we started talking for hours about forgiveness, and we got disconnected and came back. And I finally said, have I done something wrong? And he said, no, I have something to confess to you. And I'm thinking, I don't want to hear another confession. I'd heard that once in my marriage and it wasn't good. And he goes, I need your forgiveness because I think it's going to hurt you. And of course I'm saying, you don't need to hurt me. This is really okay. And that's when he came on and said, I have to confess this has all been a lie. This has been a scam. And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? Are you sick or something wrong? And I'm looking at my dual screens of my handsome Brit. And now I'm saying, okay, now you're lying to me. Now you have to prove to me that this has been a lie. And he walks me through Yahoo Chat, which is the way we've been communicating for 2 years. He walks me through setting up the camera on Yahoo Chat because now he's going to come on live for the first time. And I'm thinking I'm going to see my handsome Brit, and up pops a camera where I'm looking at a young man, dark hair, dark skin, dark eyed, with a big smile on his face. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? In an instant, this is my God moment. In an instant, the story got separated from my heart, from my mind. My intel background kicked in. I took a picture of him, and I'm thinking, okay, I watch a lot of the FBI shows. If I can keep him engaged, we can find him. Because he tells me he's from Nigeria and he lives in Lagos and his name is Joseph. It's not Dr. Eric Cole. And I'm getting all this information out of him thinking, okay, tomorrow I will turn him into the FBI, which I did. And the FBI turns around. Actually, I called my mom and dad, had them come over. And the FBI said, in Palm Beach County, more men than women get taken for over $1 million, but we'll never tell. And until you can get them here to the United States, there's nothing we can do. I shut down. I just shut down. And I said, there's no way I can get him over here. I'm not going over there. And even though every man in my life, most of them are pilots, wanted to fly over there and get him, I said, that's not going to happen. And I shut down, and I became that woman behind the smile. Hence the name of the book, The Woman Behind the Smile.
Yeah. Wow. What a story. And I'm listening to you, and so many things that you said there, I just got chills on so many levels from this. I mean, and you think about it, because on some small scale, this is like huge, right? This is huge. And a lot of people go through this, but I think about like every day when we're on social media and you see all these fake accounts, and how you said, like, people don't know this stuff. Like, they don't know what they don't know, right? Like, once you've had something happen, then you're now aware of all the so-called red flags, right? Like, you see them. It's like now, I see these fake accounts come through on social media, and they do the same patterns every time. In fact, you start seeing the same photos, like the same profile pictures show up in different names, and like you're going, can this be true that this is like a decent person, or is this not? And then you're looking for the photo, trying to see, is that a catfish photo? They're good, but they're not good. They are good because there's people that are not aware. They don't know what to look for, right? Once you've had it happen, now you know what to look for, and you can help other people be aware.
I can, but I make it my business to understand. Most people that have become a victim to any kind of fraud are going to be taken 2 and 3 times. And the scammers know that. The scammers have billions and trillions of dollars. They are so far ahead of us technology-wise and education in this business-wise. If they could do for good what they do for bad, they would be phenomenal.
No
phenomenal.
Kidding.
But most people aren't looking for the pictures and the impersonation. And once they find out they've been taken, then they go after the person in the picture. And that's the problem, because that person in the picture has now been a victim of impersonation. And if you start stalking them, you've now become the criminal because you're stalking them. So you have to realize there's victims on both sides. And not most, but in the victim world, say you have 100 of them, a third of them are going to be angry and not want you to help them at all. They're just going to be out for revenge. They're going after particularly the person that's in the picture. Then you've got the deniers who are saying, nope, absolutely not. This guy's waiting for me. He's coming, he's going to be here pretty soon. They're denying everything. We can't help them. Then you have a third that might be the realist that said, oops, well, yep, I've been taken. And through recovery, and I work with an organization in Miami called SCARS, the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams. We support victims in a way that we show them how this has been a financial fraud. We show them how to recover through, number one, telling your story. And it could be in a book. It could be on a video podcast like mine. It could be to the law enforcement, but we walk them through the steps of how to successfully do it. Typically, you're not going to get your money back. You're not going to find the guy, but you have to understand that reporting it to the police officers or to law enforcement will help them in the end compile profiles of these guys. And they are being, prosecuted in federal prison in small amounts, but there's a start. It's a start. So we walk them through how to successfully maneuver the minutia of reporting and how to get their banks to work with them, how to repair their credit, and how to work with other survivors. Because once you realize that you're not alone, it's very empowering to be able to go out and start speaking about it and not listen to the naysayers and the victim blamers, because that's the worst part. When someone starts to shame the victim in anything, in domestic violence or in this kind of a crime, the victims will shut down, and it's leading to suicides, 20 suicides a day based on this, because people lost hope in others, because they're not getting support from family, friends. They're being told how stupid they were, how gullible and vulnerable. And none of us are like that. The only thing that we said wrong, that we did wrong, was accept a friend request or say yes to helping somebody. Then it becomes part of that scam and the psychology of that whole scam. But everybody is going to be taken at some time in their life by somebody. And typically it's someone in your own family. So you just have to be careful and realize that I sure hope it doesn't happen to anybody that I know. But what I want them to be aware of, it could be your mother or your sister, your husband, your brother. I have women that have been taken in gaming sites like Friends with Words with Friends, or on translation sites. They're helping someone come to another country and they're helping translate. They become friends, and then the friend has something happen and they ask for help. It's happening on every social media platform out there. You just can't believe who people are until you see them in person, and then even that, be careful, or really vet them, really look, do that reverse Google search on the pictures, really ask the questions, because if you don't recognize what's happening, they're going to suck you in, and we won't be able to do anything for you until you've crashed. And that's sad. That's a sad day for me when I see someone that, if we had gotten the word out, because honestly, I think if I had heard about online relationship fraud prior to going online, my little radars would have been up much more than what they are obviously now, because I can feel it now. I can feel a scammer. When my friends who are dating today come to me and say, would you just look at this profile? I'm like, oh no, right off the bat, I
You're
know.
done.
I know there are words, there are things that they say, there are pictures, and military members. I mean, I was former Air Force. I know immediately if there's a military picture, it's a scammer, because military guys aren't doing that. If he's on an oil rig or he's a doctor in the UN and he's somewhere overseas, it's a scammer. Those are the big stories, but it's happening in every country, everywhere, and good people are being taken every day. And it's sad because the scammers are getting away with trillions of dollars.
Debbie, you are a remarkable woman. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I know that it's unfortunate that we have to sometimes go through these tragedies in order to be able to come out on the other side. But to see you now, where you are and what you're doing, the difference that you're making, I think it's huge. I hate to say, hey, you had to have this happen for this to happen, but I think it makes you a stronger woman, and it allows you to help those people that really need to be helped.
Well, and I appreciate what you're doing too, because I can't get the word out there. Prevention and public service announcements in anything don't really work. Right. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going through this, and when it happens, now they're looking for help. And that's what we're there for. I like to put out stuff, say, beware and be aware, but it's after it happens that my group is here for you, because we don't want you involved in any other scams. I mean, after a scam, the scammers and the crooks are out there setting up private investigators. They're setting up, we'll help you find the scammer sites. And so then you're paying more, and those are fraud too. So you need to find a real legitimate support group for victims, and don't go trying to find the scammers. It's like looking at mugshots. Yeah. It hurts your spirit to look at that crap. Just put it behind you. Say, okay, I was taken. I'm part of a really good group worldwide. Unfortunately, this happened to us, but it's going to happen for us because now we can get out there and be there for one other person. One more woman or man needs to know that they're not alone and that with support, they can get through it. And you have to change your mindset because so many of us have, hit 60 and thinking, oh, I don't have time to make any more money. Can't do this anymore. And they give up. Well, my dad just turned 93. So I have 30 years to go in my life and I've got time to redo in some ways, but I just have to redo my thinking. Like I can do certain things now. I'm smarter, older, wiser. What can I do to make my life better? And if it's being there for somebody else, it's worth the cost of admission.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of which, you're a president of It's Benfo Complete. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us a little bit about that company real quick for our listeners. Tell us what you guys do and who you serve.
We serve folks that have neuropathy, typically diabetics. Neuropathy is the damage to your nerve endings, peripheral neuropathy in your hands and your feet. And we have a vitamin supplement called benfotiamine, which is a fat-soluble form of vitamin B1 that's been very effective in alleviating or reducing the pins and needles of neuropathy. Or if your nerves are numb, it kind of regenerates them. The most exciting thing for me is recently they've done a study at one of the universities up in New York, and they're looking at Alzheimer's and the use of benfotiamine with Alzheimer patients as something to slow the progression. Because Alzheimer's is actually being linked, and researchers are calling it type 3 diabetes. And that's what's really interesting to me is that if we can start taking this vitamin supplement early on, will it slow down the progression of genetic, Alzheimer's? My dad, like I said, is 93. My mom is 88. They've been taking our stuff for 20 years. And I don't know if they would have a predisposition to Alzheimer's or not, but boy, they are quick as a wit. And I find that it's not going to work for everybody, but if it works for you, and I don't like being on drugs, I'm not on any drugs. I like supplements. If it can help, then have at it. And that's what we do. It's benfocomplete.com. And my father works for me.
Oh, well, how exciting is that?
Yeah. I think that has kept him very alert. He speaks to customers all day long. He's a retired doctor. And so it's Dr. Debbie and Dr. Jack. And
I love it.
The most fun thing for me is one day a customer called up and said, I was answering the phone calls and said, Deb, how long have you worked for Dr. Jack? And I laughed and I said, all my life.
That's so great. That's so great. But you touched upon something that was really good because when you talk about like the diabetes and the Alzheimer's kind of being linked, because, from my background research, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I just based this on the research that I did when I was going through my nerve condition because I shared with you that I was diagnosed with trigeminal neuralgia. And I did worked with a lot of holistic practitioners and did a lot of research on inflammation in the body and how really, if you think about like diabetes, being linked to inflammation and Alzheimer's. And so you'll start seeing these connections with a lot of different things, really just kind of linking back to this inflammation. So I think you hit on something really good here. So I could definitely see that there could be some kind of connection there. And if it's working, I'm all for it. I'm like you. I don't like medicine. Medicine's good for when it needs to be used, but I'm a supplement gal. So I totally get it.
And it's great. And my dad hears customers every day who are saying, you know what, I can walk without the pins and needles. I can just like I can walk, I can dance, I can do all those fun things that maybe you weren't doing before. But I have seen how people have progressed and it makes them happy again. And it's not for everybody, but drugs aren't for everybody. So for me, it's try it. It's a great form of B vitamins. I do have a multi-B also that includes the benfotiamine. And my friends call it Debbie's B's. It's great energy. It's great forms of these B vitamins. And we're always looking. We have a cream. If someone doesn't want to take a capsule, we do have a cream that has the benfotiamine in it. Probably the only company in the world that has it. And so I'm looking to be there to help folks, to give them an alternative to drugs. And if it works, have at it. And we're here to serve. And my dad loves talking to people. So give Dr. Jack a quick call.
That's so awesome. I love it. I love that your dad's working with. I think that's so great. I think how fun is that? That's so awesome. That's awesome. Well, Debbie, I think you have such an incredible story. Like I said, I think you're remarkable. And I think, whatever reason this had to happen, I think you're definitely the messenger to get these things out, and you're doing amazing things. I want to ask you just kind of a fun question to sum all this up, where you've gone and where you're at now. If you could say anything, like the one thing you've learned through all of this, what's your big takeaway here?
listen to that still small voice and don't give up. Don't give up, because the fun part of my story now is that I did actually remarry, and it was soon after the scam was revealed that I met my husband to be. We've been married, it'd be 7 years the end of October, and I didn't give up on love. I was much more careful, and I actually worked with friends who were matchmakers and made sure that my guy was real and he was an upstanding citizen. And I went for it. I was trusting once he told me something about him and I told him about my story, and we were honest with each other in everything. That's when I realized, okay, there is love out there, and we can have a meaningful relationship with truthful people. And so that's what I want to be, is make sure that people that you're around are civil and respectful. And the social media is full of those that aren't. So back off if you have to, take a pause and really look at the things that in life that make you truly happy. And don't let what I call the amygdala hijack get you, and you're thinking that something's real and it's not. So just beware and be aware, and put yourself out there in an honest way. And if you have to, have a dating buddy. If you're dating, have a dating buddy that can be there for you and give you the objectives, and just have fun with life.
So much good advice there. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible.
My
I think there's so many great takeaways there. Okay, so I want to ask you a couple fun questions. We're going to get unserious. Not that you've been great. Like I feel like you're just at peace with all of this. There's and I think that's a really good place to be, because so many people have things happen to them, and like you mentioned earlier, they get bitter, and it just becomes about the revenge. And I think the true peace comes when you can really learn to forgive yourself. When you can get to a place where you can just say, "Hey, I had something bad happen to me. It doesn't define me as a human. I can move on, and I can go forward and do something in my life." And if you can help other people in the process, incredible, right?
It's very difficult to forgive yourself. I think we are our worst critics and hardest on ourselves. And that's why we don't need anybody else to give us any blame, because we've taken it upon ourselves enough.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So, okay, well, let's do a few fun questions here. I think this will be fun. I would take out all the serious of all of this. Okay, so let's see. These are supposed to be rapid fire, by the way. They're meant to be short. We'll do our best. They're not always short. All right, first concert you ever attended?
Oh my gosh, Lady Marmalade.
Oh my goodness. I don't know, but I know the song.
Oh my gosh. I'm having a brain cramp.
Yeah, I know the song.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi? You know that song?
Yes.
It's Lady Marmalade. My mom and I went to a concert over at Dartmouth College, and I was a teenager.
Awesome. Yes, I do know the song. And I know who you're talking about. I can't picture who they are, but I know the song.
All right. It's three African American girls. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. It'll come to us.
Yeah, it'll come back. Okay. Favorite travel destination?
Oh, wow. I love every place. The British Virgin Islands.
Awesome. All right. Favorite guilty pleasure food?
Almond M&Ms.
Almond M&Ms. Haven't had that one in a while.
Dark
Awesome.
chocolate. Almond
I like
M&Ms.
dark chocolate too. You know what? Funny, Debbie. I grew up my whole probably 40 years of existence. I never liked chocolate. Never liked chocolate. Everybody's like, "What's wrong with you?" And then when I was going through my whole medical thing and I was trying to heal my body and I started doing a keto diet, all of a sudden I started craving chocolate. I think it was because of potassium. Now I love chocolate.
Moderation.
Yeah, moderation. All right, last fun question. What's in your Amazon cart right now?
Oh, probably a battery. I needed a battery for my key fob. Oh no, here's a fun thing. My granddaughter just lost her first tooth yesterday, so I went and I got a little. It was a unicorn little tooth holder thing.
Oh, how
a little
fun.
Stuffed animal with my tooth that goes on it.
How fun. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. I hear being a grandma is amazing. So I'm sure you're a great grandma. Yeah. And you're going to be leaving, I think, aren't you, to go see some grandkids soon?
I just got back from Hawaii and Texas to see them, but I'm going up to a wedding. My youngest nephew's getting married up in Virginia at the end of the month. So I'm taking my mom and dad up there to see a lot of the family, but not all the family.
Fun. Well, this has been amazing. So if our listeners want to learn a little bit more about your story, find your book, learn about the scars, maybe check out your vitamin company, where do we want to send them to find you?
Well, for the Women Behind the Smile, you can go to thewomanbehindthesmile.com. For scars, our greatest resource is called romancescamsnow.com. It's basically the encyclopedia of information about relationship fraud. For the company, it's Benfo Complete, BENFOCOMPLETE, benfocomplete.com. And there's all sorts of information in there. And you can actually call Dr. Jack and he'd be delighted to talk to you. And if this is for survivors or victims of fraud, the online relationship fraud, if you've been a victim, contact me at Debby, DEBBY, at thewomanbehindthesmile.com. I will write back to victims. I'm not interested in scammers or people that are going to blame me for what happened, but true victims that are looking, or family members that are looking for some sort of support, please reach out to me and I will get back with you.
Okay. We'll make sure, Debby, too, when this goes out, we'll get all the websites in there, make sure it's all tagged in there so that they know where to go and to find you. And so thank you so much for sharing all of that. You're great. Like I said, I love what you're doing. Tragedy that you had to go through all that, but I think there was a reason for this, and you're definitely helping a lot of people get to that other side. So thank you for what you're doing on that. And we enjoyed having you here today.
Well, thanks for helping me share it, Jen, because like I said, I can't do this alone, and I appreciate your support.
Absolutely. And we do, of course, want to say to our listeners, if you enjoy our show, please give us a rating both on iTunes and Facebook. We can't do this without you. Hit the subscribe button on the YouTube. We want to leave you guys with a final thought. In order to live the extraordinary, you must start. And every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We will see you next time.